Okay, welcome everybody. So my name is Dalith Edwards. I'm the Business Incubation Programmes Manager at the Science and Technology Facilities Council. And I'm here today with some of my colleagues to present the opportunities and the funding available from the European Space Agency Space Solutions Programme, in particular for early stage businesses and SMEs and startups. As I mentioned, I work for STFC, which is one of 7 research councils throughout the UK, along with Innovate UK, and we now form part of UK Research and Innovation funded by government. I'm based at Daresbury Laboratory, the SciTech Daresbury campus just outside Warrington, and my particular focus really is to work with the early stage tech community to support and develop them in their startup and growth. Okay, so some of the context behind ESA Space Solutions before we go into the detail. From a kind of a UK perspective, it is a partnership between ESA and STFC, the organisation that I work for. The UK is a member state of ESA, which is Europe's gateway to space, and they manage the European Space Programme that is funded through its 22 member states. When we think about space, I think we often think of astronauts, spaceships, rockets. And that's true. However, in the context of ESA Space Solutions, it's about demonstrating how space assets have wide-ranging and far-reaching solutions on Earth that are applicable across many sectors, from healthcare to agriculture to energy and the environment. And that's really to help businesses to start up, develop and grow. This is a massive network across Europe, the largest space innovation network in the world, but obviously we're here today to talk specifically about the impact and the work that we do in the UK. So I'm going to talk about the ESA BIC UK. So that means ESA Business Incubation Centre in the UK. And how can it help? How can it help your business? You know, when somebody's starting a business, it's no secret that entrepreneurs face enormous challenges when they're trying to develop brand new products and services. It is really challenging. And there are 3 fundamental strands to this programme that can make the difference between success and failure. We talk about funding, because that'll help with the startup costs, technical support, because actually that will help reduce the risk and the barriers that are in front of you in developing new technology products and services, and business support, because quite often first-time entrepreneurs, lack expertise or experience in starting and developing a new business. Okay, just a little bit about the eligibility criteria. Who is this for? You have to be a UK registered company, less than 5 years old from incorporation at Companies House, majority owned by the entrepreneurs or the directors, and actually have a scalable product or service, i.e. you are trying to solve a problem in the marketplace, and be in a position where you either have a business plan or are able to produce one. What is absolutely critical about this programme, as we've already talked about, is there has to be a space connection there, because this is a partnership with ESA. What we really mean here is the demonstration of the downstream application of space technology in the fields of Earth observation or satellite imagery. So we're talking about high resolution, much more than you can see with a naked eye, or Google Earth, for example. Satellite communications, so you've got ubiquitous connectivity anywhere. In rural areas, in areas where it's difficult to get a mobile phone signal or Wi-Fi, satellite communications can actually plug that gap and give you reliable communication methods. And satellite navigation, we've all heard of GPS, or what we call GNSS, global navigation systems, satellite systems. And this is about sort of positioning data, particularly useful if you're, tracking assets or people and need information on precise location. There is also the possibility to license technology from ESA as well, or what we call upstream. That's where you're developing products and services to actually put them into space. But for the purpose of this, we're really talking about downstream, because that's where the applicability is really for digital products and services. There's a huge amount of support available through the ESA BIC, mainly consisting of financial, technical and business support that I've already touched on. And this slide really is about the enormous amount of benefits that are available to you. I mean, we've supported, nearly 100 companies over a 10-year period in the UK who are still part of the alumni community. So you've got access to these, similar businesses, similar entrepreneurs. It's a real door opener, not just to other businesses and customers, but also to investors across the network in Europe. The funding, for example, it's €50,000 for the duration of the project, transferred into about £43,000 sterling. Technical support, up to 80 hours of technical support available through STFC or ESA and our partners, the Satellite Applications Capital, to really help accelerate that product development journey. It is a physical programme, so there is office space, lab space, shared facilities, desk space available as well for the incubatees. And this is where we are. So I've already mentioned that I'm based at Site Daresbury in the Liverpool City region. We have another site in Harwell, Oxfordshire, the Higgs Centre of Innovation in Edinburgh, and more recently, Leicester University, Space Park Leicester has joined the programme. So very much, a UK-wide presence. What this demonstrates, this graph here, really is the impact of startup support. And by helping companies to actually validate and refine their technology, work on the business model and product market, this attracts investors. We provide investment readiness support and pitch practice. And this is really the result of that. I guess the results speak for themselves, but you can see up to February 2021, £76.8 million have been invested in either existing ESA BIC companies or those of our alumni community, which proves what a business incubation programme such as this can actually achieve and how it can support these companies on their journey. This is just an example really of the wide range of incubators that we have in our programme at the moment. One of them, Gazuki Studios, is here today and will be represented on our panel. So just very briefly to finish off, some use cases to demonstrate, the kind of companies that we're working with and how we're helping them. I mean, Hooli is a company that only joined a few months ago, and they've developed an app that creates personalised routes for cyclists, combining Earth observation and satellite navigation data to actually plan routes for users without them having to actually input what they want to do and where they want to go. So it kind of uses the data and the power of AI in order to do this. They've accessed the ESA BIC so that they can obviously help them commercialize their product and actually improve their offering by adding things like training programs and so on. What STFC can do here is provide a lot of technical support in big data analytics and expertise. Thrive Multivisual, this is all about chicken health, would you believe? So robotics technology that can, I guess, weigh the chicken without needing that kind of continuous human intervention. So it's based on robotics technology that was used on Mars, so has been used in space, and it's now been used in the agricultural industry. They also use satellite navigation data to be able to locate and track the chickens, because we're talking about farms that are over, hectares and miles of land, not just a very small business. And the funding they received allowed them to actually build this robotics demonstrator, and the contacts and the networks through the ESA BIC helped open doors within the agri-tech industry. And finally, Digital Urban. They are a company, they're on the programme at Daresbury at the moment. They build digital urban models of towns and cities, and are working with some local authorities in our region. By combining Earth observation data and integrating that into their model, it means they can provide a lot more accurate and timely data for users. And they're actually working with Envisage Space, who are on our panel today, to support them in using these tools and integrating EO datasets into their product. Very quickly, there are deadlines for the ESA UK. 2 deadlines left in 2021, which is the 20th of May and the 16th of September. So plenty of opportunity there. And these are our local contact points, should you actually want to inquire further about the application process and so on. Thank you very much for your time. I will now hand over to my colleague, Alan Cross, who's going to talk to you more about ESA business applications. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Alan Cross. I'm the European Space Agency's Business Applications Ambassador for North West England and North Wales. At a glance, what does that mean? So ESA Business Applications is part of ESA Space Solutions, which Delith is also part of with the ESA Business Incubation Centre. Business Applications comes further on. It's not about incubating the business, it's about getting products and services to market. So it's about co-funding to assist commercially viable businesses to get to market. And those products that we're looking at, those services, are focused on the downstream using satellite position and navigation, timing, remote sensing, or connectivity. So we look at all different sectors. So this could be agriculture or fintech or city planning or transport or logistics or education or fashion. But as long as they're using one of those main satellite data sources in some way integrated in there, and that they've got a clear customer focus, we can consider them for co-funding to help them get to market. And your regional ambassadors, of which I'm one, are located across the country to help you do that. So what do we mean by space? We're not talking about building rockets or sending astronauts to space. We're talking about satellite position and navigation, timing, satellite connectivity, satellite imagery. So to touch on what Del had said earlier, so basically with satellite positioning, they're big atomic clocks in space, and they send out a very accurate timing signal, which your device picks up at least 4 of them and then calculates its position. Hopefully it picks up more than that to get it more accurate. And so this is used, as we know, in the likes of Uber and these things, you know, tracking your deliveries as they arrive, for positioning and navigation and route optimization, but also for worldwide geostamping and for geofencing. But the timing signals on their own are very useful for timestamping, for integrity markers in blockchain, for master clock synchronization, like the national grid, for example. Satellite connectivity, I've used the word connectivity rather than communications, because now we've entered the era where rather than pointing a satellite, as you see on the side of someone's house, at a fixed point above the equator, and the signal goes thousands of miles up and thousands of miles back, we now have ubiquitous connectivity for broadband much closer to the Earth, so 700 miles away, which means very high speed, very low latency, ubiquitous, high bandwidth connectivity from space. So this is about accessing data services, backing up terrestrial networks, improving security and integrity. There are even dedicated IoT satellites up there that are, you know, this big or multiples thereof. And they are very low energy, low bandwidth, dedicated to those little tiny bits of information that are needed for some IoT applications. Satellite imagery, yes, we're talking about, you know, very high resolution imagery, 30 centimeter resolution, which means a pixel on the screen is 30 centimeters. But also in radar, in ultraviolet and infrared and microwaves, and a huge array of data can be gathered from satellite imagery for change detection and in near real time as well. We're not talking years out, we're talking, you know, sometimes the images are only hours old. So this is what we're talking about when we talk about satellites and space technologies. So what does ESA offer? ESA business applications is zero equity funding. So we don't want to own any of your business. We don't want to own any of your IP. We don't want the money back. We want you to grow and become more competitive and disruptive and create more jobs. So when you apply, you'll get a personalized ESA consultant at the beginning. That'll be myself or one of my ambassador colleagues. But once you're then really into the weeds of applying and putting your project together, you'll be working with a technical officer within ESA itself. And you get access to our international partners. You know, we build space stations and we do send astronauts to space, and we work with businesses and other organizations all over the world. So you get access to those as well. And crucially, our network of investors and use of the ESA brand, which is very useful. So we are looking for services that are designed by customers that are using feasible technology and that are viable and sustainable. So designed by customers. We don't want someone who's got a snazzy bit of coding and goes, everyone's going to love this. We want someone who's responding to a market demand. Does the customer need this? The customer should be working with you on this, in fact, when you're doing our feasibility studies or demonstration projects. And it's the feasible technologies that are important as well. We don't want you to reinvent the wheel. We don't want anyone to reinvent sat-nav or sat communications, anything like that. It's using the data that's available now. And if you need help in understanding what's available, drop me a line. We can help you figure that out. And it's about viable and sustainable products and services. So this is not technical R&D. This is working with the customer to figure out how much you're going to charge. Is it really what they need? Is the customer base there? These kind of things. So once the project is finished, you are then at market with paying customers. So some of the examples that we have of thematically focused competitive tenders is the NHS Future Hospitals Initiative. Now this is working with Hampshire Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust, because that is this is a pre-made customer. They're waiting to go. You don't need to bring a customer with you. They're there waiting, which is quite unique in this instance. So this is about using, again, satellite positioning, satellite navigation, satellite timing, satellite imagery, satellite communications and connectivity, and also space-derived technology, so maybe sensor technologies, to create new products and services for new hospitals. It could be in logistics. It could be in improved patient reach, which is how do you telepresence like we're doing now? How do you connect with people who aren't necessarily in the hospital? A huge array. If you've got any ideas, let me know and we'll help you out. Here's an example of some more of the thematically focused funding we have. So you can see intelligent transport and space resources and uncrewed shipping. Crucially, if none of this applies to your business, but you still think satellites might have some way to help what you're doing to create a new product or service or to bolster existing services, even if it's not mentioned in any of these thematic calls that we have, don't worry. Tell us what it is. We will consider any idea for 50% funding to get it to market, regardless of what we've asked to see, regardless of whether it's got nothing to do with uncrewed shipping or intelligent transport or space resources. Maybe it's in education, maybe it's in fashion and sustainability, whatever it is. If it's using those satellite data sources in some way, let me know. Come and speak to me and we'll help you figure that out. Come and speak to me even if you're not in the northwest of England or North Wales, because we have an entire team of ambassadors across the country. So come and speak to me and I'll connect you to them. We've got bid specialists who work with us to help you with the initial stages of application. So here's my details again. Your friendly neighborhood space ambassador. Follow me on Twitter, send me an email. We are looking to support products and services that are using space technology but aren't looking at space. We're talking about your customers here on Earth, your customers that you're using. How can you use the power of space to increase the services you offer to them, to give them more value for money? Please email me, drop me a line, let me know, and come and say hello. I'm now going to invite some businesses who've engaged with ESA Space Solutions to talk to us about their experience, about their business, and about how they've used space technology. So first of all, I'm going to invite them all to tell us a little bit about themselves, just 3-4 minutes each, and then we'll dive into some questions. So first, if I can invite Rose, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your business?
Yes, I'm Rose Kay of Masuki Studios, which is currently an ESA business incubation company. And we're a group of international filmmakers, digital artists, and immersive technologists using space tech of satellite signals, visual positioning, and Earth observation to geolocate augmented reality stories which move people. And we move them emotionally with award-winning storytelling. We know how to keep people watching that box set through the night. We've worked with Netflix. And we move them physically from place to place using cutting-edge extended reality technology. And using the power of geolocated story, we can move people to action because interactive AR has been proved to be far more effective at engaging audiences than TV or film. And Harvard Business School have evidence that story is 7 times more effective than non-storied engagement. Apparently, people make decisions based on emotions 90% of the time. So story activates people. So if you want people to fund you or buy your product or change behaviour, like stop polluting the planet, we need interactive story. And audiences at the moment want to be moved. They're expecting more active and interactive experiences nowadays, we've found. And we want to move them to get them out into the fresh air, connecting with family and friends again after COVID. And brands know that the value of moving people as well. So they're using it for out-of-home marketing. Organisations know about moving people emotionally through story. They know it gets messages out, changes behaviour for good purposes, much more effectively than non-story methods. So we're being approached now to support a range of campaigns to invigorate economies again, to get people moving. And we're unusual because we combine high production values and sophisticated storytelling techniques, for which we've won awards like BAFTAs and Pre-Europas, with cutting-edge technology that's R&D, and we're pushing the boundaries of what is possible. And with ESA BIC, we're trying to find new ways to overcome the limitations of geolocated, data-rich AR. We need better accuracy, faster fixing to maintain audience interest and satisfaction, and we need better coverage, so no more urban canyons and rural blackouts. And the aim is to have space tech supporting our applications, working seamlessly in the background, integrating with our tech. And thanks to ESA BIC, we're now 5G ready and smart glasses ready, because both of those are going to have a transformative effect on the sort of work that we do in the near future and in society in general. So we use a range of technological skills. We have digital specialists with world-class developers, and we use Unity, and we've developed our own software development kits to create applications with a range of relevant functions such as geofencing, push notifications, gamification, web-enabled functions. We've recently done some research into web AR, so we're really pushing the boundaries there as well. We have interactive maps and AR navigation. And we've been developing these skills during a range of projects. Secret Coast is our first prototype, which led audiences along a coastal path using AR stories, portals and characters, and interactive maps and gameplay. And we're working on a digital immersive experience for St George's Hall in Liverpool, which will have experiences outside within Liverpool itself. We recently finished a project with the Foreign Office and PwC for a Turkish tourist board. It was a smart cities project to deliver an interactive AR story quest, leading visitors through a UNESCO heritage site, which is Bursa Old Town, and the visitors can collect 3D AR treasures on their walk. And as a direct result of ESA BIC, we've got a new partner, Smart Green Shipping, who make zero-emission ships. They've done some very innovative work to create that new technology, and we've created digital twins of their ships, so they can show funders, investors and partners the potential of their product, with the aim that we can have an augmented reality and a virtual reality experience to showcase at COP26. So by combining our technology and our creative skills and ideas with ESA Space Tech, we're creating new ways of delivering stories in locations, something which hasn't been possible before. And we think this has massive opportunities, because sometimes no matter how brilliant your idea is, and especially if you have something game-changing to say, people need to be moved before they take action. Thanks very much.
Well, thanks, Rose. Thank you very much. Rich, do you want to introduce yourself and your business?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Rich Burnett. I'm the Chief Operations Officer at AWOL Adventure. We're based in Lancashire. We're established, coming on 9 years. We'll be in June, so we're relatively established, and we're essentially a media and technology company, and we focus on what we call mass participation sports, which is basically things like marathons, triathlons, cycling and swimming events where lots of people take part. This was on the business applications stream, and it was actually Alan who kindly put us onto this to begin with. It's been extremely helpful. The project was just under €1 million, obviously co-funded, and it was very much a kind of a commercial first thing. It was driven by market demand from our customers. So some of the headline ones, London Marathon Events, a company called Human Race, Chester Marathon, and some others, primarily in the UK, but obviously with ambitions to kind of grow internationally. And it was all about taking our current workflow, which was all about event photographers and video from course, and dragging it into the 21st century, because essentially what we had was a really offline system that took maybe 2 days to launch photos, which is too long. You know, anyone that has done anything like an event before knows it's all live. Everything's live and in the moment, and you need to capitalize on that. So that was a big problem we were trying to sort of solve. So we approached ESA with a kind of a dual pronged attack, if you know what I mean. It's a sort of a SATCOM data play on one side, and then the GNSS time and location play on the other. So essentially getting photos and video from a course, like somewhere out on the London Marathon or another event like that, should we work with them, uploading it to start with, but also having those images and video, knowing where they were and when they were taken, so you can accurately tag. And essentially what we're doing is 50-50 hardware and software. So firstly, networking the cameras, uploading their data, geolocating, and then in the cloud, doing things like facial recognition, and then finally using our platform to deliver personalized content to people. So essentially, if you were running an event next week, you'd register with us beforehand, you'd put your face and other data in there, and then we would notify you within 60 to 120 seconds. So essentially within 2 minutes, we would notify you and send you your photos. So taking an industry that used to be 12 to 48 hours of delay, we've smashed that and put it down to within 2 minutes. And actually in testing, and we've got our factory acceptance test ongoing at the moment and due by the end of this month, we've got this down to a matter of seconds, sort of 15, 20 seconds. So it's a significant decrease in the wait time, which significantly increases the engagement and, you know, ultimately the revenue. So that's the thing we're trying to solve, and it's going extremely well. So we started in September, and here we are.
Wonderful. Thanks, Rich. Really interesting. And finally, Terry.
Hi all, my name's Terry McClarney and I'm the CEO and co-founder of ESA Space Limited. We are satellite application specialists and we're based in Edinburgh. However, we moved our operations down to Daresbury. We did that in June of 2020, and taking advantage of all the opportunities that Delta Allen can offer and being based there, albeit virtually so far, and we're very much looking forward to integrating into the community further. We work with two major aspects of satellite technology: Earth observation and GNSS or geolocation. And basically, Rose set the scene very well for what we work on, which is geolocation, which is your phone or GNSS receiver locating itself. Needs 4 or more satellite signals from the constellations that orbit us to give yourself a good fix. And the problems can arise when you are in an urban environment or any built-up environment, or indeed natural environment, whereby these signals get blocked or reflected, and that can lead to inaccuracies, which Rose mentioned. We are developing some analytical software which understands the environment of which the receiver's in and then looks to improve the accuracy of the receiver and the outcomes. We are currently working on a stream of the European Space Agency called NAVIS, which is Navigation Innovation. So we've moved from a feasibility study under business, under the business side, into a little bit more R&D and technical development, and then we'll be likely moving into a more business applications for our next project. We've through ESA support, it's been 1.2 million worth of euro in an area of which the UK leads, which is position, navigation and time. And we are currently, our current project with ESA brings us into partnership with a number of universities. which is Cranfield and also Strathclyde in Scotland, in Glasgow. And we are working with the construction sector, particularly on large-scale builds in urban centres to improve the use of GNSS and all the knock-on effects that we'll have with all the systems. We have taken part in this because I think ESA and the ability to link into either the business incubation side or the ambassador through to some of the examples you've been given is a real unique opportunity. The UK is a large contributor to ESA, and our company has benefited completely by being part of these projects and programs. And we are open to helping through the panel discussion companies with, over a coffee, any advice that we can give in taking that forward. Just part of our current project, what we'll be doing is we're going to be working with Cranfield on a test site which looks at automated vehicles, and basically we're going to have an autonomous rover car running around, operating in complex environments with improved accuracy. So that's the outcome of our current project, which will allow for obviously commercial benefits going forward, which will be more business applications.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Terry. Really interesting. Okay, first question is for all of you. What problems were you trying to solve? What were the main business drivers for the solutions that you've come up with? If we can start with Rose there.
Hi, I think I've frozen on my screen, so you're just going to have to listen to my voice, to my very weird face. Yeah, we were trying to tell stories in geolocated stories, getting people outside in the fresh air, getting families enjoying their space and the communal assets that we've got. And also we had a real driver to get them to think more about their environment. And we found that the current situation that everybody knows about Pokemon Go, but they were using a situation, as Terry pointed out, you need a number of satellites, and it makes it very difficult to be very accurate. There were health and safety issues with Pokemon Go, so we wanted to have more control over when people were triggering. Because originally our augmented reality stories used image triggers, which we still sometimes use. They have a place. But if you want it to be really dynamic and really organic, and you want it to therefore be like Pokemon Go and have a GPS trigger, we need to know where people are going to be, where they're going to cross that geofence. And then you can be much more sophisticated with your storytelling. And also it becomes a much more shareable activity. It becomes much more satisfying. And of course, also there's the health and safety issue. If you know that it's going to be within a 2-meter range rather than a 50-meter range, you can place your story moments in different places. So that was the original problem for us. There were other problems like not fixing quickly enough. All of those are going to be improved by things that are beyond our control to some extent, like 5G, like the more satellites that go up there, the better it is. But we also wanted to look at what happens when you combine all the different technologies together, because they all chip away at the inaccuracy.
So just to follow up on that, so with the likes of Pokemon Go and other services like that, you said there was around 50-meter accuracy. Is that right?
Sometimes when it first began, things have improved even since. I mean, we began in 2017, and we deliberately placed our first prototype actually on the Wirral because it's got a very, very big. It doesn't matter if you walk onto the beach because it's so huge. And that allowed us to have we didn't have health and safety issues. But as soon as you want to get anywhere where you don't have that amount of inaccuracy, cushioning, you need to start thinking about what the user experience is. And it has got a lot better since we first began, partly due to ESA putting up more satellites and all the other technologies. So we're not. It's like, I think one of you mentioned the word. You don't have to invent the wheel. We are not reinventing the wheel. We are not the likes of Facebook and Google, who are doing the most amazing things technologically. What we're doing is we're looking at all the different technologies that are out there and putting them together to make our own SDKs and things like that. So. We are one of the things that is great about our ESABIC experience is that we get introduced to other companies, and we are very collaborative because we see that's the way that this technology is going to go. Working with people, it's really interesting. Terry, I'm going to get in touch with you later, and Richard, because I think when you work with other companies and you're all working to pushing the boundaries, but nobody can do it all on their own. I know Facebook and Google and Microsoft are sometimes doing these massive things, but as little companies, if we all work together, so the networking part of ESABIC has been absolutely fantastic.
Great stuff. I should probably reiterate for those at home some of the acronyms. So GNSS, for example, is Global Navigation Satellite System. So generally speaking, when people say GPS, that's what they mean. GPS is the American system, but there's also GLONASS, which is Russian, and Baidu, which is Chinese, Galileo, which is European. And your devices will be using all those different signals, and they have different levels of accuracy, which is one of the things that Rose is talking about there, about increasing that accuracy. I think the same question I'm going to ask to Terry, because there's quite clear synergies between yourselves and Rose. Again, what was the problem you're trying to solve there? What are the issues that customers have?
So, well, I think Rose has done my job for me in terms of a direct problem, which is the inaccuracies when you use a device. Each device, like a mobile phone, will have its own range of accuracy. So even in an open field, the receiver type or the chipset and the gubbins inside will have a point of accuracy. So it could be at best a meter. But it was very well described with regards to everyone can, a lot of people have used Pokemon Go and can think about the digital overlay of the imagery to where they are walking around. And obviously that idea of when you get into complex environments, so we're talking about, urban canyons, which are just tall buildings, they affect the signals. So you need 4 signals to directly hit the chipset or to hit the receiver to get an accurate location. But what happens is the signals bounce around, and it's simply 101 for satellite GNSS is it's a time signal. So the longer the time it takes, it produces this inaccuracy. So we started the feasibility study that knocked off all this, or which created the project we're doing. Started from this premise very similar to Rose's, whereby looking at geo ring fencing ideas. This is where if you walk into an area which this system in the background has identified as being of interest, so this could be if you think about targeted advertising, for example, the inaccuracies of this will be based upon those the conditions what I've just mentioned. Now, if you're targeting advertising or even gameplay, it could be less of an issue. Rose is working on it to obviously improve the experience through a more localized aspect. But what we're focusing on is the higher end of location accuracy, which is in construction, which is surveying, which is down to millimeter accuracy. And that's just a more advanced system which works to locate yourself. And what we're able to do is to optimize the signal pattern so that the system can select the best signals to locate itself within that environment. So in other words, we're bringing the open sky element into a more complex environment. And the benefits for the construction sector is economy. It's the construction sector, for example, which is our initial stakeholders, are heavy users of GNSS, very advanced stuff. for the surveying. It's going to be down for millimeter accuracy right the way through to more automated systems, whereby they're starting to use augmented systems for the cabling and everything that lies behind the building. It's all location and geolocation based. So the more accurate, the higher accuracy you have, the better the system performs. And what we're finding is that a lot of urban regeneration obviously involves working, either knocking down previous buildings or like in a case study we were into in Scotland, it's the redevelopment of grade 1 or grade 2 listed buildings. You're working in an environment which is complex, and so therefore the trade-off on the accuracy of systems is dependent on that environment. So we improve the accuracy within that environment. They get, for example, surveying a knock-on effect of improvements in time to actually survey the site. It can be down from hours down to minutes, which is very similar to the SATCOM element, which was mentioned for the photos. It's a step change in capability, and if that can go through into a process based, it's saving on manpower or person power going forward. So it's a very interesting area to work in, and it's just capitalizing again, as Rose mentioned, on the investment which is going up into orbit all the time. In particular, the European aspect, Galileo, which has got the ability to locate yourself even more accurately with all the frequencies that it uses, etc. So it's a very exciting time to be working in this area, because you're seeing the knock-on effects of like problems in different industries being underpinned by the same kind of like technology. So there's lots of avenues to improve.
So do your customers know that they have a challenge? Because it sounds like they're getting on what they're doing, and maybe they're not aware of the art of the possible. Or is this something that they're very definitely aware of?
So you've got, I think people inherently know. When I talk to people about, they understand that there's a problem. So for a layperson on the street, you might have come across the experience of using an Uber where the blue dot puts you on the other side of the street, and the Uber driver will call you and you have to do that manual kind of like interaction to correct. So they're aware that there's problems. But if we move into the project we're working on, which is the construction sector, they're used to putting in extra receivers, to putting in augmented systems to overcome it. So they're very aware of this because they're higher end users of GNSS. So there's generally an understanding. I mean, Rose has very eloquently described it more so than me, of the problem from a gaming point of view, or that interactive point of view. People are aware that there is issues. So it's not the biggest step to educate them maybe on the causes of those issues, and then ergo the ability to offer an improvement and offer a visible improvement is something which the ESA projects allow you. Like Della's presentation, in terms of you get into the technical side to build prototypes to prove the concept. Which then opens the door for further developments, which is more your area of working with businesses. So if that answers your question.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Very well. Rich, again, same question, but so you mentioned being able to reduce the time of getting these photographs to the customers from 2 days down to 2 minutes. Again, was that something that the customers were aware was a problem? And how was that? How will that change how the industry works? What was that problem you're trying to solve there?
It's a good question. Yeah, and the short answer is yes. We spent a lot of time actually while we were putting the application together, re-evaluating everything, and actually defining our customers. And that was something that was actually bore quite a lot of fruit. So defining our customer, we actually have 3. So you've got the participants of a marathon race or something. They're the ultimate customer. They're the one that will get their wallet out and do the sharing and do all that stuff. They're very much aware of it. Whether they're aware that there's a better way, they are now, because we've been doing a lot of communications about it. But essentially they're finishing a race and they're sending us support tickets saying, where are my photos? You see it on social media. They're jumping up and down looking for their content. The most important thing after a race is, how long did it take me and what did I look like? It's kind of like that. And it better be good and it better be right, because there's no tolerance of things being wrong, and you see that every time. So the other customer we've got is the actually the B2B element, which is the event organizer themselves. So yeah, Human Race or somebody like that who contracts with us, and they say, hey, well, you're our official photographer for the year. You have the right to come and take photos at our events, and we'll help you publicize it and sell photos or give them away. So that's the other customer, and they're just the same. It's mission critical that you get these photos up as quickly as possible. And we did as much as we could in previous years to increase better our processes in the offline way. So, to the point where we bought about 300 memory cards and put them all in little envelopes and put people's names on them, just to cut off and shave off any error, human error, basically. And we got as good as we could. We could launch that night if we were lucky, and it was a small event. But ultimately, it boiled down to jumping in the car after the race, driving at 90 miles an hour back to the office, laying all the cards out on the floor and going, right, what have we got? And that's not very good, and it's not very modern. So that's gone now from our perspective. It's finished.
But was that the industry standard? Was that the standard? Was that what everyone does worldwide?
Yeah. So the big players worldwide are more or less doing the same thing. They're giving out cards and they're taking them in at the end of the day. There was a few areas, and we dabbled ourselves in 2018 with networking a camera, or having runners running backwards and forwards with memory cards to Costa Coffee Wi-Fi to try and upload as we go. But regardless of having the photos uploaded, you might have them uploaded, but you've not got them tagged, and you can't deliver them in a fast way because you still need to send them to human data entry for the race number to be picked out, and then you need to send someone an email. And if they're running the race still, they're not going to be checking their emails. It's actually their mom or dad that you want to reach, but how do you reach them? So it's a whole pipeline thing. It's not just the really obvious networking of a camera. So the way we did it, we split it down to kind of three principles, which was speed, accuracy, and quality. And it was kind of like three pillars type situation. The speed is the most obvious thing, and that's how quickly you get a photo up. So it's all about internet. So providing kind of ubiquitous internet wherever you are. So on top of a mountain, that's easy. You throw a satellite antenna up. But actually in a crowded city street where you'd normally have 4G, 5G, the minute you get loads of spectators there and a load of RF interference, radio frequency stuff, it kills the network off, as we know. You can't even make a phone call. So how do you get an internet in the middle of a city where you can't see the equator, you can't see the sky really, and you've got no 4G? So there's a huge internet provision issue there as well, in terms of the turnaround time of getting things there. And then you've also got the issue with how do you tag these things and how do you notify somebody? So the software play is massive. The accuracy one, so the accuracy by which we can tag and locate the photos. So you've got position and accurate time, and you're blending that with things like Strava, which is a kind of a third-party sports platform kind of thing. So you log your activities, your training, and your racing. So we integrate with those guys. There was actually something mentioned earlier on about the accuracy of GPS signals and GNSS signals in rural environments, and that's something we've come up against quite heavily. So that's an interesting one to hear, because obviously the signals are bouncing around all over the place. You might have a photographer stood in one place for 3 hours, not moving at all, and yet their photos are all geolocating up and down the street. So that's something we're working on separately, just in terms of a kind of a manual intervention. But really, we need this autonomous. So we're trying to reduce the human input and therefore the human error. So that's a good one to talk to. So this shows in just this call how there are synergies between different businesses, even completely different industries that can work together.
Absolutely.
And then the final thing I was going to mention was the quality. So the quality of the photo is the most, probably visually visible. I mean, every photographer that works at events, there's a certain standard, and some are better than the other. But at the end of the day, they're taking the same image, and if they're good, they'll take similar images. What we're trying to push on the quality is the ability to take very large photos. So like on the canvas on the wall behind me, a 25 megapixel photo, and compress it to such an extent where it will go 5 photos per second all day long through a SATCOM connection without any loss of quality. So that's a huge thing we've been working on. Again, successful in terms of how you send a proxy up, a smaller file, and then you link it later when someone buys it. So there's a three-pronged attack that we've got going on, and it's all been driven by the customer, if that makes sense.
Great.
Can I just jump in there? That's really interesting, because that's the quality issue is one of the issues that we've had to struggle with, because a lot of our competitors, they're putting up things like Pokemon Go is a great example. It's actually very simple. It's much more simple in terms of graphics, and it's lower poly, and it's a cartoon. And we were looking at is it possible to do live action? Is it possible to do very rich, high poly cartoons? And that's another reason why we needed to do some R&D on it, because that also affects how fast it fixes, whether it glitches or not. We deliberately make stories that allow for glitching, talking about people trying to come from the past, and that's why sometimes it fades and goes. And I can take Richard's point. You obviously can't do that. You can't use the story the way that we've used it to get over the glitching and the fact that sometimes those images aren't as high quality as we want them to be. But ultimately, that's our aim, to get the same quality, because I come out of TV and film. The audience and the customers are expecting a very high quality of image, and that is one of our big challenges that we've still got to overcome.
Yeah, sure. That's really interesting. Yeah. Again, yeah. Okay. There's a lot to unpack there, isn't there? I've got a question for Rich there. So you've come from an industry standard of 2 days to get stuff online. So was the rest of the industry or the customers, were they aware of what satellite connectivity can do? And whether they were or they weren't, presumably when you turned up and went, we can do this in 2 minutes, did they go, yeah, whatever, or did their heads fall off and they just couldn't believe what you were telling them?
I'm not sure. I mean, you never know, but I've got a sneaking suspicion they won't believe us until we show them. So we have our first, live pilot event on the first weekend of June. So it's by British Triathlon, the AJ Bell World Triathlon, and it's quite we've been doing this for a long time, but I think the live photography thing on our new platform is seen as new. And when we demonstrate it to them at that point, I think people will believe it. And obviously we're in massive testing mode at the moment to make sure we can actually deliver it as we've said. So it is it's a lot. There's a lot of pressure, but we're pretty confident we're going to be able to do it.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, so we've heard about how the space technology, how the satellite data helped your business, is helping your business along. Do you think it's possible to do this without the space aspect? Is space just something you've tagged on, or is it critical to your activities now moving forward? I'll ask that to Terry first.
Well, considering we are working to basically wring out the maximum amount of accuracy from a space-based system, which is the GNSS, then it's mission critical for it to be orbit-based. As Rose, again, go back to, it's very eloquent, the future of high accuracy is going to be generally, say an autonomous vehicle, it's going to be a fusion of different systems, virtual or visual positioning systems, etc. But underpinning all of this is for us and our system is the fact that satellites go anywhere, or they can service any part of the globe, and there's an inherent value in that. We also, I mentioned Earth observation as part of our understanding of what the environment in which the receiver would be operating. We actually have used Earth observation from the other side, which is to create 3D models of the city environment which is in, which utilizes the high accuracy Earth observation satellites, of which a couple of the kind of commercial players, one of the big European ones is Airbus, and they've invested heavily in the Earth observation side, which is taking photos or different sensors of monitoring the planet. And you're talking about accuracies of 30 centimeters from orbit, which is really really accurate stuff. So for my business proposition, it is completely dependent. It's inherent that it's going to be space-based, and that people are aware that the underpinnings of the system comes from space, and the fact that when we're offering these improvements, we're actually utilizing, as you said, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're still using the same receiver assembly which they have. We're still utilizing the satellites in orbit, but what it is that analytics in the middle ground, which is offering the localized understanding where they're operating, which is the value add of what we're offering. And just to follow up slightly to the last point of the belief in 2 minutes, say for example the couple of hours down to a couple of minutes. Sometimes in space technology, we've got the Hollywood effect. To either to get us in the door in terms of people who are interested, but also to educate people that it's maybe not the case that we can do that. So the classic movie Enemy of the State, if you remember, whereby the spies are looking from orbit and can read number plates, can sometimes work slightly against you as well. So sometimes it's the trade-off utilizing space technology, which the accuracies of GNSS is a classic example. But other side, it's the you talked about it in your presentation. The ESA brand is very powerful for SMEs in particular, to be able to go into companies and saying we've got an idea, we think it can do this, but also we've got the support of ESA, which they think it can do this with the right support. So that's also very powerful.
Great, yeah, thank you. Rose, same question to you. The use of space and how closely is it going to be integrated with your business and customers moving forward?
Well, Terry and I are obviously on parallel working with a lot of synergy, because yes, he's answered that very eloquently and very comprehensively. It is absolutely critical. I think what you're sort of untying is it's critical, and yet the person who uses it, who is going to get the benefit from it, might not be aware how critical it is. But that's the same with everybody uses Google Maps. And they have no idea the technology, the fantastic technology that makes that work, that's behind that. And the fact that Google and all the big giant techs are looking at how all this satellite and space technology can deliver what they're trying to do shows that it is absolutely critical. And I was talking to somebody from Google, and he said there's two different ways that space tech is going to help what you're trying to do, your business proposition. You can put your story into a location, and it'll help you do that, and it'll also put the location into your story. So it's doing two things, and that is that it's fantastic that it can do that. And I think the customer, not so much when we're doing B2B stuff, that's slightly different, but when you're doing B2C and you're thinking about the end user, I don't think they will ever really understand how that technology is working and how amazing it is that ESA isn't just about sending rockets into space. It is about all these day-to-day things, like how do I get from here to here? How do I order my Uber? How do I enjoy my location-based game and story? And they don't want to know when they mess around on their phone, which my children are doing all the time, my teenagers. That's absolutely welded to their hands. Well, this isn't true, actually. My son doesn't want to know how it works. But generally, people don't want to know how their phone works. They don't want to know how the car works. How many people actually raise the bonnet of their car and start messing around with the engine? They want to know, is it hot in winter? Is it cold? Is it cooling down in summer? Does it get me from A to B in the way I want it to? Does it give me what I need? So that's how, as business people, as small SMEs, I see our role as sort of taking all the technology and then making it suitable, answering all those pinch points and problems that people have. They just need to know, exactly like Rich says, I want my photograph now. I've just finished. I want my family to see it even before I see it myself. And so it's that they don't need to know. I think from ESA's perspective, I can see that you want them to know how much you've put into these changing and solving all these problems. It would be great if people acknowledged a little bit more how much has gone into that, how much ESA has supported us, because my personal experience of the ESA support has been fantastic in lots of ways, all the ways that you and Daleth have mentioned in your introductions. And as I said, the networking and getting to know people, even today, it's really useful. So
that's, yeah, I think one of the challenges we face is people very often think space is something so far removed from themselves, that it's something that the Americans did and that they did 50 years ago, you know.
Yeah.
And so the moment you say satellite navigation, you go, yeah, but that's not really space, is it? That's just your phone. Yeah, but by getting your location, you're interacting with $1 billion worth of spaceships. So it is space. Space is absolutely integral to what we do. I think my favorite fact is from the pre-pandemic, from the moment you wake up to the moment you arrive at your place of work, you've probably interacted with about 25 individual spacecraft.
That's brilliant. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, and it's things like, you know, the fact that the national grid is operating because it's timed by using satellite signals and things like that. It's absolutely integral. Okay, so Rich, come back to you again about the use of that satellite data and how closely do you think it's going to be integrated with your business going forward? Will you be expanding the use of it maybe, or do you think we'll just be honing in on what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah. So I think it's quite interesting what's just been discussed. You know, especially the point about the ESA brand and the sort of the perception of things in the Hollywood factor. It's funny when you speak to some customers, they think when you start talking about space, they think money. They think it's going to cost them lots of money. And some of the larger ones have actually used SATCOM before. They brought in, for their VIP lounges, they brought in SATCOM to give everyone internet. And it's generally cost a lot of money. And some of the older pieces of technology haven't necessarily even worked that well. So you get that, but then you counterbalance that by all the amazing news that's been coming out in the last sort of 12 to 24 months about the low Earth orbit, all the investment that's going on, and actually it wins, and people really do pay attention. And I genuinely think for our project, especially the space aspect has been absolutely critical. So obviously there's no real other way of doing the time and location aspect that we need. What we used to do was open our phones and go on time.is, look for GMT and all sync our clocks like that. But human factor again, there was huge inaccuracy, you know, as expected. You know, we were meters, maybe kilometers at times wrong in terms of where we were. And we once got a set of photos from 1984, which were taken that day. So that probably illustrates, you know, you're from a number of seconds to a number of years out just due to the human factor. In terms of the data stuff, so people often say to us, well, why don't you use, you know, 4G LTE advanced is really fast, 5G is on its way in, it's going to blow SATCOM away, isn't it? And you're actually thinking, well, no, actually, because yes, 5G has got some really interesting aspects to it where it will be able to have the bandwidth and the diversity to be able to work around large crowds of people and not all over like it currently does. But actually, is it going to be everywhere? It may be in city centres, but is it on the top of a mountain? It's not ubiquitous. Can you plan on it? Can you rely on it? And then you also bring in the other part of this whole deal, which is the low Earth orbit stuff. So OneWeb in the UK especially is a company we're looking at quite closely. With their network of satellites, it's going to be so much lower. So rather than firing through hundreds of kilometers of atmosphere to the equator to hit a satellite that's there, you're firing straight upwards, and it's picking a new satellite every 2 minutes, and you're getting fiber broadband type performance. That's something that's coming in next year, something really interesting. I think that's going to be unbeatable. And like was said before, it's kind of a blend between technologies. So we're using kind of routers that will balance and fail over and bond actually multiple connections across 4 and 5G cost-to-coffee Wi-Fi, and then multiple low Earth orbit and mid-Earth orbit satellites. And that's the thing where you know you're going to get a connection, and you know it's going to be good, and you can plan for that. That's how business operates. You can't just turn up and hope on the day. We don't do that, and we wouldn't do, because that ends up with egg on your face. So that's really why it's critical to us, I think, Alan.
Great stuff, thank you. Really interesting from everyone there. I've kind of been so involved, I might have taken my eye off the clock, and I think we've overrun slightly, but just very quickly before we finish, we've got 3 quite different businesses on the panel here, all with synergies, that all interacting with each other with those overlays, and that shared experience and expertise, as we've discovered, is probably going to go forward with communications together. What advice would you give to anyone listening now who has just discovered, right now, that space is a thing, that it's maybe something that they can integrate into their business that is going to allow them to do new, exciting things? What advice would you give them in moving forward and getting started? Just 30 seconds to a minute each. Rose.
I would definitely apply for ESA BIC to become an incubator company. I found it absolutely brilliant. It feels very onerous at the beginning. I had to write a 30-page business plan. I think it might have even been 60-page. I can't remember. It was huge. It felt enormous, but actually, it was a fantastic thing to do. I've used that business plan since to win further contracts. The support is great. We're at Daresbury, and the people there are just brilliant. They give you loads of they actually pass on lots of information, and the Bursa Turkish Tourist Board contract, which it's just published on the Apple Store today. This midnight it went up. So and that came directly through being part of Daresbury. So thank you very much to everyone, John Locke, there for that. So it's definitely worth doing, and we've hooked up with fantastic companies, and intend to do so whenever I meet the people like on this. I would advise you to go for it, although it is very onerous at the beginning. I'm not gonna lie. It's a tough, going in front of that panel. They really rattled my cage. They really made sure that I knew what I was talking about. So you need to know what you're talking about, and you need to have the technology that genuinely does use space tech, because they will catch you out. There's a lot of very, very bright, impassioned people working in there, and it's great to be part of that, and we really appreciate being part of that. So yeah, go for it, I would say.
Great. Honesty is the best policy there. Thanks, Rose. Terry, what would you say?
Following on from that, it can seem daunting to even the acronyms and the terminology used, but from this conversation, 3 different companies, which at the core of it is utilizing, in this case, GNSS, so your geolocation, to enhance their services. But we've all identified areas and problems which are right across the industry, or different industry types, to look at making improvements and solving problems that our end users will have, which is fascinating. We've won several tenders from the European Space Agency under both business applications and, as I say, the more technical stuff, which is Navis. But it's the same underpinning kind of like philosophy, where you put in a 7-page kind of outline proposal to an individual who will help you understand that and to refine it before you put in the larger applications. And there's a lot of help and support. It seems daunting, and Rose really hit the nail on the head. You look at it and think, oh my goodness, and it does take a bit of time. But the other side of the application process is the ability to drawdown funding, which in this day and age, post-pandemic, is going to be important. To use that ESA brand, as an SME, that's been invaluable to us. We've got that little stamp of approval, which gets you into those meetings and opens the door. And the technical support. ESA, headquartered, we've got big offices in the UK, but also the main offices in Europe is in Holland, for example. They've got lots of technical offices which have worked right across industries. There'll be generally no industry that you're involved with that they haven't had some dealings with and have some understanding of, and importantly contacts with, which can help you develop as you go through, because they're very open with ideas and concepts, because the whole underpinning is there's billions of euros been invested in technology by ESA and by all the constituent countries. And in order for us to have a competitive landscape going forward with the Americans, Chinese, etc., we need to capitalize on it. So that's the whole underpinnings of why they're doing this. And so they really want to see you succeed. And I guess my final bit of advice, having gone through the process ourselves and developed our own technology, but also worked with other companies to advise on the satellite, the technology aspect, is to keep to your core customer problems. Because as you say, there's the three of us have basically shown the same kind of problems of location in an urban environment and in a rural environment. It's kind of like leads to problems for your system, and you've got to overcome those with the technology, is to keep that customer focus in mind. And satellites will be part of the solution, but going forward, it's the interlinking of that technology and the expertise which is going to drive your value proposition. So it's to understand that, the Hollywood effect, satellites can do a lot, but they won't do everything you need. It's that underpinning of your industry expertise, which you need to keep in the back of your head. But we've been so thankful we wouldn't be where we are now without the support of the ESA and the UK side. So we're here the reason why I'm doing this is to highlight some of the things that are available. And if you've got any questions, contact us or importantly, Delif or Alan, because they'll point you in the right direction.
Excellent, thank you. And finally, Rich, brand new, think of a new company, they just discovering satellites, space. Very quickly, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, a lot of my material's just been taken by the other two panelists, actually. I'd probably say a few things. So finding the problem, really what it is, and really testing it, and actually trying to emulate what you're trying to build before the money comes in, just to check it, because you might find something that you didn't realize, and really go to town on that. The other thing would be, in terms of the customers, would be to get in blood, get in writing some good backers who have agreed and actually want the product. That was really helpful for us, because we really leaned on them during the development. But then also, I think, with the point about the technical officer, we've got a great technical officer, Elena Rosano, and she's extremely supportive, engaging early and often with that person. And so rather than, while you're doing the application, we took a long time to do ours, and we almost built Rome in about 12 months. It took us absolutely ages to write it. And looking back, the sort of attitude of UKSA and ESA and people like Alan is really open. So give them what you've got and wait for feedback and iterate like that, rather than trying to do everything by yourself in a silo. I'd really suggest that that would be done. Once the project kicks off, you need to sort of kind of educate. I had to learn this completely from scratch. The sort of project management and the structure that ESA follows looks like a wall of words to start with, and it looked to me quite unnecessary to begin with. But now that I know, and now that I follow the process, it's actually been extremely helpful, and it's all there for a reason. And yeah, it is one size fits all. It's the same information for building, a satellite as it would be doing something that we do. But these are the same headings, so I would commit to them and try and do them. And on the flip side of this, as you said, the payoff really is huge. You know, yes, you've got a lot of work up front to get the application through, but once it launches, you know, within the structure, as long as you follow it, ESA is extremely supportive. The technical officers are excellent, and actually quite hands-off as well. So there's a lot of trust once the application's gone through for us to crack on and actually build the thing. Obviously, the money's been a huge factor, really quite well timed at the moment during the pandemic, due to the fact that we don't have an industry, and we haven't had an industry for the last 12 months. Thankfully, it is coming back alive now, but it's really helped us get through that period and essentially semi-hibernate in terms of the operation and switch all efforts to the technical. So that's been really useful. And then finally, the brand thing again, you can't put a value on ESA as something to get you through the door. So, I mean, I would sing the praises from the rooftop of this program if I could do.
Great stuff. Thanks, Rich. Okay, we'll wrap up there. Thanks, everyone. Rose Kay from Gazuki Studios, Rich Bennett from AWOL Media, and Ted McClary from Envisage Space. Thank you very much for your time today. We'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.